All right. Good morning, everybody. Hey, so good to be with you. And as we're opening up this week, here we are. This is our 11th virtual meeting for Morning Ascents. We did one all last week. We did for 5 days. The week before that, we did 5 days. And now here we are on week number 3. Hey, these are exciting times. Yes, they're very scary times. They're very disappointing times. They're challenging times, but I am excited to be with you this morning. And one of the reasons I'm most excited is, one, I am just grateful that you're with me, because I remember years ago doing these meetings, and I have to tell you, there was just me in a room. And sometimes people will look at me and go, "Man, come on, did you really do these things when you were all alone?" I did. I would stand up, I would do my affirmations, I'd sit down and I would do my gratitudes, I'd set my intentions for the day, and I would get really clear on where I'm going. So this morning, I want to just share with you just a couple of things. I thought to myself this weekend, I said, man, what are the one or two things that are most important to me when it comes to teaching, speaking, and what am I most passionate about when it comes to helping people? Oftentimes I'm asked the question, what is it that I should speak about, George, when someone is asked to speak, whether it be at a summit, maybe it's a base camp, maybe it's an interview with another agent, and they always want to know, what is this going to look like? What am I going to be talking about? Or what should I talk about? And this is always my answer and has been for many, many years. I say, speak to what you are most passionate about and you know the most about. Now think about that. What are you most passionate about? And what do you know the most about? And my observation is that the more we know about something, the more confident, the more certain, the more believing we are. And then we also have these love affairs, right? With concepts, principles. There's things that change the whole course of our lives as we move through our lives. There's maybe all of a sudden we figured out how to do lead follow-up and do it effectively and watch the magnitude of change that can happen into our business when that happens. Or we all of a sudden, realize we have great success with a buyer, and maybe we were working really hard at listings and it was a real challenge. All of a sudden we have this awakening because we can work with buyers and we somehow figure that out effectively. Or the other side of it is that we may be that person who's been working with buyers over and over again, and then all of a sudden we get the success with a listing, and all of a sudden we start to see a vision and a passion and an energy, and we all become driven to figure those things out. The one thing that this business has taught me is that we can have passions everywhere about this business, and there are so many ways to earn money in the game of real estate. Many, many years ago, I lost the idea that there was only one way to do business. And I remember I used to think that it was simply for sell by owners, and man, that was it. But the fact of the matter is that we all know that there's numbers of ways to do business, meaning there's a number of sources to do business. So as we move through today, what I want to get, across to you is to really hone in your craft today. Get really clear as to what it is you're going to do to succeed. And so I want to talk about 3 principles, and then I want to take you through what I would consider to be a coaching session. And I've done this before, but it comes down to is that if you're not being coached, first and foremost, I think you should be. But even if you aren't, and even if you are, this applies. Because sometimes we leave it up to everybody else to coach us, to point out the blind spots, to show us where our mistakes are, or to show us where we're succeeding, or to show us a newer or better path. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a very, very good thing. But it's a very bad thing if we aren't capable in our life at some point in self-diagnosing what it is that's wrong or what needs to be fixed within our business. And so I want to give you what I consider to be a real platform that any moment and any time, if you're truly honest with yourself, that you should be able to take a step back and say, wait a second here. I know the answers to this test because I'm asking myself some better questions. So let's start there. First and foremost, that is that questions are the pinnacle to focus. So let's think about this. When we ask ourselves questions, it gets us to focus. So point number 1 is if I want to increase my focus on the right stuff, I've got to ask myself better questions. That's the key. Sometimes I've really believed that oftentimes it has nothing to do even with this idea that we are even asking the right question. Sometimes just asking the question, or if we never even figure out the answer to the question, there's something powerful that occurs when we ask ourselves questions. So look, for each one of us, we need to have questions that we ask ourselves. If you haven't listened to a daily message, I think it went out this morning, but the power of focus, again, comes from the power of the questions that we ask ourselves. So look, let's get really focused here today. Let's get really focused as we move forward. I am not here to deny the ideas that there are challenges. I'm not here to deny the idea that there aren't things to do that will be incredibly humane, show our humanity, the way we serve, the way we give, the way we love, the compassion that we show, the empathy that we give, the sympathy that we even give in moments of real struggle and trial. Let's not excuse ourselves of that. We get that. I think every one of us gets that. But then there's also another part of this equation that is a requirement for us to act, to do, to accomplish things because things can be. Some people get really bothered by the fact that I am always go, 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 go. Well, because the fact is that when you're going through hell, in the great words of Winston Churchill, you keep on going. And some of you have paralyzed yourself. Some of you have run away. And very few in this industry we call real estate. Now, I know if you're on this call, you're part of this crew that's doing this. But the industry has run or gone paralyzed. And the reality is that this is then the time to pounce upon the opportunities that are there. Not take advantage of someone, but look at the opportunities to serve and to give of yourself because you step up because of the better questions that you're asking yourselves. So the point number 2 I put down was structure. Now, structure all comes to within this idea of patterns, disciplines, rituals, disciplines. So if you're writing something down, I would tell you to ask this of yourself. What are your patterns? What are your rituals? What are your routines? What are your habits? Because the fact is that those are what establish the structure. And I've said this for years. I've already said it over the last 3 weeks. And that is that a poor result in our life, economically, our health, our relationships, comes because we have a poor structure. It's all in the setup. So the key for each one of us, that if we want to have success in a market which is stay home and stay safe, right? Only go out because we're considered an essential business, where still today, so much of what we're supposed to be doing is to be done virtually, and to limit the contact to others, to keep all and everybody safe, then there's a reality check that the structures have changed. So in relationship to that, now what are your new patterns? What are your new rituals? What are your new habits? What are your new disciplines? Those are what are going to create the success. And look, I almost will tell you that I don't care how wealthy you are, how successful you've been. I've had people say, man, I'm really in good shape. Well, here's the deal. How long can you go without income? How long can you go in these crises? And look, let's be honest. These challenges may last. We already know that it's been extended another 5 weeks. Just yesterday by the President of the United States, April 30th. What if it goes another month? What if it goes another month? Another month. So here's the deal. You can be off for a week or two. You can be off for a month. The question is can you be off for months? Some of you may be able to, and I applaud you for your success. But the reality is that for the majority of us, we need to sell real estate, and we need to find pathways to selling that. So look, ask ourselves better questions. Number 2, look at better patterns, rituals, disciplines, routines, and habits to get us to a higher level of success. And the third thing I wrote down was this, is to never, ever forget where you're going. So the word of the day is vision. Gang, I don't care how bad things are. Here's the problem. When things are really bad, people are really good about being able to see the vision of how bad it's going to be, how tough it's going to be, how difficult it's going to be. I'm asking you to put a flag on the hill and go to the summit and get really clear on what you want your life to be right now. How much money do you need to earn? How many deals do you need to do? How many people do you need to serve? Guys, there are people who still want to sell their homes. There are people who still want to buy a home. There are people who are desperate for your leadership to show up in their life. There are homes that are vacant. There are homes where there is great challenge and tragedy. There are estate sales. There is business happening. So the key is that if you don't get really clear on your vision, and you say, man, I keep hearing about this, George, man, I'm kind of tired about this. You know what? Then there's a big mistake going on if you don't. Because the fact is that each one of us every single day needs to know where we're going. One of the great tragedies of humanity is that they don't seem to often know where they're going. But not this group. You guys are different. I believe deeply that you can figure out where you're going. You can get as simple as how many appointments you set this week. How many people will you speak to and bless their lives because you showed up? How many listings will you take this week? And you say, well, I don't know. Really? How about we start with one? How about we start with the focus that this week I will take a listing? What are you saying to yourself? What's the vision of hope? What's your vision of your belief in the future? Look, even if you're wrong, so what? You can keep convincing yourself that things aren't going to work, or you can convince yourself that things will work out. You have everything from social media to these messages to others that are consistently telling you it's going to work out. This too shall pass, we keep hearing, right? This too shall pass. Well, will it? Yes, it will. The question is always this: how will we each show up when this is all going down? Because it's all going sideways. It doesn't matter which way you look. You can see it everywhere. There's uncertainty, there's fear, there's panic. All of these different elements are the showing of the need of one thing, and that is leadership at its highest level. And we're seeing extraordinary things of leadership because those people have a different vision, a different focus, a different view, a different vantage point, because they see a difference in the fact of their lives, because they see a difference as to where they're going. So do you know where you're going today, this week, this year? You got to get clear. And look, if you're wrong, okay, then you change it and you get more clear. Or if you want to change it a week from now, you change it. But you got to get into the habits, the rituals, and the disciplines of setting a clear vision. That is what every great leader does for their team, for their company, for their family, for themselves. Get clear as to where you're going. Now, some people say, man, this is kind of tough conversation when so much is going on. I can't think of a better conversation with so much going on. If you don't know where you're going and you choose to stay in hopelessness, stay in depression, stay down, stay negative, stay hateful, resentful, stay in a space that does not serve you or anybody else, man, that is not good space. So get clear on where you're going. Get clear on the activities you're going to do. So with that, we've got time. We've got about 15 minutes, and I want to take you through a coaching session. So here's the deal. Question I always ask, so write this down. Number one, what do I want to get out of coaching? If I'm your coach, I'm going to ask you, what do you want to get out of coaching? What do you want to get out of even the remaining 15 minutes that we're going to be together? What do you want to get out of that? Think about that, right? Do you want a higher level of focus? Do you want a clear vision? Do you want to elevate your skill sets? Do you want to have a better map, a roadmap, a blueprint to your success? What do you want to get out of this coaching session? Only up to you to decide. All right. Number two question. How will you know if your coaching or the coaching is working? How will you know? How will you know whether or not the person who's coaching you, me in this scenario with all of us on the phone, how will you know it's working? How will you know if it's effective? Only again, you will know that. But it's pretty obvious, right? Either you're having success in the business, you're having transactions occur, you're getting a deeper center to who you are, what you believe you are. You'll come to an understanding that you can do this business. You'll do transactions, you'll earn more money. There's benchmarks that you each have to have, and you are the only one who can set those. So now, Number 3, really important one. If I'm starting every coaching, I always ask this: give me a victory. What is it that's been victorious in your life over the last 7 days? Take the last week. Let's assume that we coached last week. What is it that has been your success, your victory over the last 7 days? What can you think of that was a real win? What can you show that says, man, even if it was I stayed healthy, good for you. That's victory, right? What if it was a deal that went under contract or deals that went under contract? Maybe it was a listing that was taken, a buyer that was picked up. Maybe it was just the service that you rendered. Maybe it was the way you gave back. Maybe it was the things that you did. Guys, I want to remind you that so much of victory is about us, one, identifying that we have them and really celebrating them. Because if you don't, the thing is that sometimes you will think back and go, man, I'm not really accomplishing much. And yet the reality is most likely you are. And I'm asking you to really treat yourself kindly. I'm asking you to treat yourselves very, very well. We are really good at beating the heck out of ourselves, and we are really good at coming down on ourselves. And I'm challenging you to really, truly take a step back, find the victories, find the wins, find the things that really show that you are truly being successful. Next thing I wrote down, number 4, if we're putting lines on here. I wrote down, what do you want and why? Look, if I am coaching you, there is no way that we're going deep into our coaching without me knowing what you want and why you want it. You may come to me and say, man, George, I want to sell 50 homes this year, 100 homes this year, 25 homes this year, 12 homes this year. That's great. Why? What's important about the homes that you sell? What's important about the deals you do? The connection between what we think and our goals and our heart and our emotion mean everything to our success. So look, for you, I'm going to challenge you to get really clear on what you want. It's the reason why I asked all of those questions. And I've said them on morning meetings, more daily messages. They're there for the taking. I said them in a social media message last week, but they're the ones about what's important about money, what's important about your health, right? What gives your life purpose? What is it that you look to, from the standpoint of when your life is not going the right direction, you ask that question, what am I willing to accept any longer? In a nutshell, that means no more mediocrity, no more settling, right? How will you know your life is on track? What's the vision of your life? What about the relationships with God and who you have to be? Your children and who do you have to be? Right? Your friends, who do you have to be? How about for yourself? What type of relationship do you want with yourself and who do you have to be? You say, man, that's a lot of work. But hasn't the world slowed down enough yet for you to be able to take a step back and ask yourself these questions? Because these questions are the ones to knowing whether your life, and one of the most important questions I think to ask yourself is, how will I know my life was a success? Here you are on your deathbed. How will you know? How will you know that life was a success for you? How will you know that you lived a life that you meant to live, not by accident, but you lived a life that was purposeful and real? Only you can figure that out. Only you can know, right? So let's get really clear on what it is we want and why it is that we want it. And let's connect the dots. So now, if we were coaching, I would have given you all those questions. And we would have come back and I would have said, look, now we're going to go through all of these different numbers. And I want you to write these down, and they're recorded. And you may say, man, this is pretty pragmatic. Man, we're kind of getting into the nuts and bolts. Yeah, because look, we can sit and wallow in the difficulty of the day. And there is no question, there is heartache and challenge. Or you can stand up and rise up and win. And that is your decision and no one else's. And I get it, that all of us are in different stages of our grieving. Because look, guys, this is a grieving process. And if you haven't heard my take on this, I will go through this quickly, but I want to remind you, each one of us are different. But for right now, I'm challenging you, each one of you, it's time to recalculate. It's time to get busy. It's time to be a difference maker in the market. right? First and foremost, many of us will get very down, right? We will start this off with really this idea that we're going to completely deny that there's even a problem. And there's still, I meet people all day, like act like there's not even a problem. They're in complete denial. Well, we know there's a problem. We know there's a virus. We know that the media is, polluting our minds nonstop of the amount of people passing away and the challenges that are ahead and the difficult moments that are there. But the reality is that it's there. So first and foremost, most people in their grieving sit back and go, man, I'm going to deny all that. It doesn't even exist. Then the second point is they get really angry. And some of us get really angry really quick. And then the third is we start bargaining, pointing fingers, why people should have done this, or people should have responded faster here, or this should have been done, that should have been done. Why didn't you do this, and why didn't I do that? And then we go to a place of absolute hopelessness when we grieve. Depression, sadness, hopelessness. But then sun rises, and all of a sudden we become just a little more clear, and we start to come to a realization of the realities of our lives. And we start to then look around and go, wait a second, this is what life is. This is my new norm. This is the new norm that we're doing a Zoom call, right? This is the new norm that I'm picking up my phone, talking to my sphere. This is the new norm. I'm picking up the phone, talking to 2 times, to 3 times, to 4 times the amount of people. This is my new norm. And there becomes a real reality check to all of this. Like you become completely like understanding the fact that this is your reality. And then you begin going down that pathway of recalculation. Guys, we have got to be better business people. We are the leaders in the industry. We are the leaders in our community. We are the leaders in our family. You have got to get clear on where you stand as a leader. There is a bunch of followers. There's a bunch of critics. There is a bunch of victims. There's a bunch of people blaming. There's a bunch of people who simply want to use anger and hate and use that as a weapon. I am challenging you to lead with love, with light, with goodness, with blessing people's lives because you showed up, because you were truly the leader that was needed at that moment. That is great leadership. Not waiting, not pointing fingers, but going and doing. So look, if you know what you want, and why? Then we start moving into this question, which I've been talking about. I got ahead of myself, but this, you'll know this is the next question. What are you doing with your time? That's the question I'm going to ask you for coaching. I'll pose it lots of different ways. Hey, so tell me, what are you doing with your time? Pretty simple way, right? Hey, tell me, what does your activity level look like? Share it with me. I want to know what you're doing with your time. Because when you ask that question of yourself, you start to recognize really clearly, wait a second here, maybe I'm not doing the things I should be doing with my time. Maybe I'm not prospecting. Maybe I'm not practicing. Maybe I'm not being highly disciplined in areas that, guys, this is time right now is going to require the most mindset, mental toughness that you have ever needed to express in your life, show up in your life than ever before. Get very serious about protecting your mind and your heart. There has never been a greater time to protect it, to elevate it, and to empower it. Number 2, again, what are you doing with your time? Number 3, question and coaching. So I'll share it with lots. Hey, what are you, this is how I usually phrase it. What are your greatest challenges? But then I'll come back to, share with me what you're most frustrated with. What's the burr under the saddle? What's giving you pain? What is it that's making you angry? What's preventing you from getting your business the way you want it to go? I'll pose it in 20 different ways. But what, in simple terms, what are your challenges of today? You say the virus. Okay, now let's quickly go to number 4, which is, what are the solutions? Now think about this. If you coached yourself and you said, man, I'm going to get clear today on what I want and why. Number 2, I'm going to figure out right now, what am I doing with my time? Am I prospecting? Am I practicing? Am I presenting? Am I calling my sellers? Am I calling my buyers? Am I truly taking activity that's going to produce business? That's the reason to ask about your time. Number 3, what are your greatest challenges? What is it that's preventing you from getting the business done? What is it that is your challenge, your frustration, your pain point? And number 4, what's the solution? What is the solution? Now, again, you can come to me, you can come to your managers, you can come to your coaches, you can come to your spouse, your friends, your family, and everyone who's well-intended. But I am convinced that unless you really do not have the knowledge base, but this is the comment of most agents, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what I'm supposed to do. I just need to do it. So isn't that interesting? You know, if your greatest challenge is accountability, what are you doing to be accountable? If your greatest challenge is that you're not making calls, then you make an accountability agreement with a close friend, an associate. You say, hey, here's the deal. If I don't call my sphere today, I'll pay you $100. If I don't call my sphere today, I'll send you a takeout from, DoorDash or Uber Eats. Do something that holds you accountable and do not allow yourself to not re-strategize your structure. You have got to do this. So look, again, what do you want and why? What are you doing with your time? What are your greatest challenges? What are your solutions? I've given some solutions. Some of those solutions are accountability. Some of them are what you're doing with your mind, right? The foundation, mindset, skill sets, discipline, purpose, goals, plans, schedule, and systems. You guys know the answers to the test. They're there. So if you were coaching someone or coaching themselves, how good would it go if you knew what they wanted and you really knew why? If you knew, like, hey, tell me what you're doing with your time. And then all of a sudden you got into, now I know what you're doing with your time. Tell me, what are your greatest challenges? What are you frustrated with? And you started writing that down, and then you said, now, what are the solutions? Last week, Matt Salter talked about every day, man, what could prevent me from winning? All right, here's my solutions to that. Guys, this is about not only leading others, this is about leading yourself. And I have so much compassion, sympathy, heartache, empathy for those who are struggling. But there are those who need to get busy, that need to stop wallowing in their pain, wallowing in the media, looking at all the negativity, focusing on what the news is saying, focusing on what the papers are saying, focusing on what every social media is saying. Some of you need to step back and take control. I believe, in closing, as we wrap up today, that there's an epidemic in this entire industry, but I believe it's a worldwide epidemic. And that is that we allow people to we allow people to take control of what we are going to focus on. And it's an epidemic, because the fact is that if you aren't controlling what you're feeding your mind with, if you aren't controlling the thoughts of your mind, if you aren't controlling what you're listening to, what you're watching, what you're reading, what you're journaling, who you're spending your time with, who you're participating with, you are giving up control. And one of the things that control gives us, at some level, it gives us a sense of control, gives us a sense of certainty, it gives us a sense of confidence. Guys, I just want you to be confident. I want you to be certain and know there's a bright future ahead. I don't want you to wallow anymore in the grief and the depression, the sadness and the hopelessness of what this market is or isn't. There will be people who will continue to do that, but not you anymore. It's time to step forward. It's time to get busy. It's time to make calls. It's time to make a difference. It's time to make a difference. No more waiting. No more sitting on the sidelines. No more sitting on the bench. No more tiptoeing into the pool. Cannonball into the pool, right? Get into the game. Serve people. Love them. And look, I'm not suggesting your conversations have to all be with your sphere about trying to get something. We'll get into that later, maybe later this week, where we get into what do those conversations look like. But just call and simply say, how can I help you? Guys, look at all the sources that are there right now for you to call, and many of you aren't calling them. Your sphere of influence, your past clients, centers of influence, whatever you want to call it, past clients, centers of influence, family, friends, associates, deals that you've done. They're all there for the taking. They're are people who are desperate to know about what's going on in real estate right now. Just listed, just sold. Why are we not calling people, having conversations when everyone's home? I mean, gosh, everybody's home. Call them. Why are you not calling around listings? Why are you not calling around just sold? And some of you are, I get it, but man, if you are, call more of them. Prime the pump. Prime the pump. You'll find the people that must sell right now. You'll find the people that must buy right now. And whether you're in Utah or California, it's the same. You're an essential business. So it's time to get busy and make the calls. No more wallowing. No more feeling bad for yourself. No more looking at all the tragedy and then getting all sucked into that when you have a job to do. Unless you have all the money in the world, then I guess you can stay there. Unless you have all the deals that you'll ever need in the world, then don't worry about it. Focus on the media, what they're saying. Focus on all the challenges. Focus on all the tragedy. Guys, I want to give you perspective. In the U.S., this year, these are the numbers from last year, but this year at least, 700,000 people will die from cancer. 600,000 people this year will die because of heart failure. 50,000 people will commit suicide this year. So look, I get that there will be death, but I also get that you have a stewardship and a responsibility to lead. So whether or not you like my message right now, whether you think, well, it should be a little softer, because no. For some of you, you need to get your butt in gear and get busy. For some of you, you need to get busy and you're waiting and you're panicking and you're operating from fear instead of absolute certainty that you can help people. There are people desperate for your presence in their life. Go find those people. Call the just listeds and just souls. Call your sphere of influence and your past clients and your friends and your family. Call the for sale by owners and the expireds. Call the internet leads. Stop waiting and show up and get in the game. Because some of you, again, are still waiting. Waiting for what? Waiting for the government to help? Waiting for the government checks to show up? Waiting for what? Waiting for what? Go get after it. Go get the business. Go protect your family and protect the people who are desperate for you to show up in their life. That's the tragedy, is that there are people desperate for you to show up, and we are sitting on the sidelines. Not all of us. I know some of you are not, but there are many of you that are just simply waiting. And nothing great occurred by just simply waiting. So get after it. Have an extraordinary week. Have an extraordinary day. Have extraordinary weeks and months. And let these days that you figured out to be one of the few in this country. When you take the millions of people into the 330 million people in this country, you can be one of the few that step up, rise up, and lead. Most will not. Stay in the light. Stay in the gratitude. Stay in the goodness. Show your empathy. Give your love. Bless lives. Make contacts. Talk to people and see what's possible for you. And with that, we're doing some affirmations. Have an extraordinary day, Gabe. I am so excited to be with you. If you can't feel my passion, then you must be on mute.